Happy New Year's Eve, I assume you'll be listening on. I am recording this December 30th, late in the day. Hope everyone is happy and safe this fine evening and brings in the new year properly. And that the Steelers get things back on track against the Bengals and then into the playoffs. And I don't think that's crazy talk. But today's Mailbag Day, and we're just going to dig right in. Yar Harara asks, what is the reason, if there is one, for the drop in Watt sacks this season? Is it win rate, chips, snaps? Of course, I asked this having in mind how spoiled we are as Steeler fans are to have him that level for so many years. I don't think he's a declining player, but I do think the last, game or two, wires are a little crossed here with Christmas and stuff, that he hasn't been 100% healthy either. I mean, since he's come back from that injury, I think he has not had the burst and explosion or change of direction or suddenness, but that's a short sample, of course. I would imagine that for Cincinnati and into the playoffs with this break, he looks more like himself. He's getting more attention than ever, which is saying something. There's no doubt about that in terms of chips, double teams, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's no question. So every opponent fears him at least as much as they ever did. So that tells you he's not declining. I mean, these offensive coordinators and NFL coaches are really smart by watching tape. When he starts to get singled a lot more, you'll be like, oh, he's probably slowing down. Well, he's not. But I think there's two reasons that aren't his fault. One, they don't blitz very much. So assuming they help, a very high percentage of Steeler pass rush snaps is 6 and sometimes 7 versus 4. And he's never the one-on-one, needless to say. More so than it has been. Now, that also allows you to drop more people into coverage, and that has its benefits too, et cetera, et cetera. But I would be up for more blitzing, but we'll get to that in a point here too. And the other thing is, this is very Bengal related. The Steelers have basically been the worst defense in the league with quick throws. And what they define that as is the ball comes out of the quarterback's hands in 2.5 seconds or less, which is remarkably quick. They've given up the most yardage and are worst in EPA defensively against quick throws. And so they get a lot of them. And hate to tell you, Burrow's the best in the league at them. And Mahomes was ridiculously good at it just this other day, just recently. So that's how everyone's going to attack the Steelers. A lot of it's because they don't have press man corners, in my opinion, to disrupt those routes right off the bat. And therefore, there's just not enough time to get home. There just isn't. It's hard to sack a guy in 2.3 seconds, 2.4 seconds, assuming the right tackle is better than me and you. I mean, at least gets a hand on you. You know what I mean? Because, so that's really the answer. Then it doesn't mean he's not impacting the game a great deal, though. Noah Nichols asks, maybe a topic for the show today. Possibility T. Higgins is a Steeler. They have the cap space, can create it for him, and they tried to get a big name wide receiver all this season, and they know him well. Seems like he'd fit with Russ well as well. I love the fit. So let's talk about T. Higgins because he's coming to town. I think he's having his best season as a pro. Folks that are like on the sideline during games went out of their way to tell me, holy cow, is he physically imposing when you see him in person. And that's true for a lot of these guys, but we know he's big, but he's bigger than you think. Let's put it that way. And more physically gifted size-wise than you think. And I think he'd be a wonderful fit with Wilson. He definitely is a go up and get it, corner of the end zone, sideline guy. Chase is more the run after catch, but Higgins is not devoid that way. He'd give you two twin towers with him and Pickens. So I love it. And I also don't dislike the idea of or let me just say you're right, that if that was something that their number one goal in free agency was to do, they could get T. Higgins under their cap and still pay Russell Wilson or whatever. I mean, they could afford it. I definitely believe that. The problem is, there's several. He's clearly the number one receiver target out there. So by no means are you not going to get any bidding war for T. Higgins. I mean, wherever he ends up, it wasn't like he only had one suitor. They outbid someone for T. Higgins, no matter where he ends up. And what I keep coming back to with him, trying to be as impartial as possible, is the Patriots have the most cap space in the entire league. The Chargers, I think, are second, third, or fourth. But those two teams have gobs of cap space. While the Steelers are fine, they're in good shape. They got a lot of money to spend. But they don't have that kind of money. And man, does he look like a Patriot or a Charger to me. You know, like, I don't know if either one of those teams would be interested at all. Who's to say? But that's exactly what Drake May needs. I mean, if you really want to invest in your quarterback, you go get him a guy like T. Higgins and draft another one. As for the Chargers, I think he's the missing piece in their receiver room. McConkey's really, really impressive, but he's a much different style than Higgins. Now you're talking. So I think it's far-fetched, and I'm sure I could come up with other names that have money that would like T. Higgins. That's not hard to do. But those two, to me, just jump off the screen in terms of I might overspend for those guys if I'm, for Higgins, if I'm Chargers or Patriots. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA and college basketball, NHL to UFC or MMA, head to BetOnline today to get on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, Quint asks, any early thoughts about running backs this year, such as Marion Hampton, Khalil Mullins, etc.? Guys with a realistic shot at being drafted by Pittsburgh, barring one is not resigning. Warren's going to be back, folks. I don't think Najee's going to be back, and I think that's absolutely the right move. So going to the draft is perfect. That staggers Warren and the incoming rookie nicely in terms of their age difference. I absolutely think that if you are in the running back market in the draft, you want a bigger bodied guy. Doesn't have to be quite Najee, but I'm thinking 220 is kind of a cutoff, maybe 215 if he's a real physical bowling ball type. I absolutely am not using my first round pick on it, but... And I'd preface this by saying I'm not deep into draft prep, but I am going to the Senior Bowl. And now, as the regular season winds down, I will definitely be ramping that up. But anyone that is deep into the draft prep will tell you this is a phenomenal running back class. I heard Mel Kiper say the other day, he has draftable grades on 35 running backs in this class. I mean, not every team's going to draft one, and 3 of them aren't going to take 3. So, I mean, you may even get undrafted free agents and 7th-round picks that are good backs, that aren't bad. And obviously, you're going to get 3rd-round caliber guys in the 4th and 5th rounds. And I think that's where I'm shopping, probably 3rd through 5th round, depending. But here's some of the top names to know. Several of whom you'll be seeing in the college playoffs. That's why I'm going to kind of just pull up a list. Ashton Jeanty, you probably know from Boise State. He's going to go high. He's going to be the first back taken. He's shorter, 215 pounds. I think he's going to be too pricey for the Steelers. But then you start getting into Quishon Judkins from Ohio State. 6', 220. Massive pedigree about him. You mentioned Hampton from North Carolina. Also a big back, 220, 6 foot tall. Penn State, you've probably seen Nicholas Singleton, 6 foot, 226. Ollie Gordon, Oklahoma State, 6'2", 235. So again, these are guys that are probably day 2 type picks that have some traits you're looking for. There's a very productive dude at Arizona State, Cam Scatabo, 5'11", 215. Kansas has a guy, Devin Neal, also 5'11", 215. And the last couple names I'm going to give you are Raheem Sanders from South Carolina, big dude, 6'0", 230. And Jaquindon Jackson from Arkansas, 6'2", 233. All these guys are considered like top 150 prospects, obviously subject to change. Heights and weights aren't official, but you get the idea. And you can scan around the league. There aren't that many teams that are super running back needy. So I really think that this draft will be a fantastic buying opportunity for the Steelers. Douglas Brown asks, it seems that the Steelers are not yet in the top tier. Given that the Steelers draft has been excellent over the last 2 years, do you think the 2022 draft or 2025 draft could put the Steelers in the top tier? I like the way you frame this, and I like the way you look at it. And I think it's pretty clear that last year's draft, and I guess Broderick Jones is not out of the woods as being, great player by any means, but he's going to be a starting tackle, was a really good draft class. Porter, Benton, Herbig, et cetera, et cetera. Really good draft class. Omar's first. This one looks very promising as well. And we still have got nothing from Roman Wilson and Fahatanu. So pretty looking forward to next year's camp when we talk about all the 2025 draft picks, plus those 2 from this year too. So you're kind of like double dipping with rookies next year. But history shows no matter who the team is, really if you can string 2 B plus A minus drafts back to back, it goes a really long way. If you can do 3, that's a heck of a foundation, usually for a lot of years. My hesitation isn't that I don't like Russell Wilson, but when you talk about in the top tier, I can promise you that the Steelers next year will not have Burrow, Herbert, Lamar, Mahomes, Josh Allen level quarterback. That much I'm certain of. So can you still be a top tier without those guys? Yeah. I mean, the Lions, the Eagles. I think those guys are good quarterbacks, particularly Goff, who's perfect for that, but it's not phenomenal. And if you're loaded with 3 young draft classes and Cam and Watt and those guys and Minka are still highly contributing, I think you could get there, but the quarterback part gives me pause. It just does. My man Michael Odesso, clearly Dante Jackson is still working through back injury, and his struggles in man have been talked about plenty. Would you start Trice Saturday and let him and Joey play man against Higgins and Chase? Seems a little scary, but it's what the defense ideally wants to play, right? I like your thought here. It's kind of a gutsy move, and we know Tomlin and how he understands the locker room. And this would definitely be viewed as a demotion to Jackson, because Tomlin even came out today in his press conference and said, we're expecting everyone to play in this one. And that includes Joey Porter, by the way. But I've said this plenty, as you've reiterated here. I think the Steelers only have one man corner, and back to the inability to blitz a lot, or, I think a lot of it is because they don't trust their corners and man. And now I'm not saying Trice is the answer, and I don't think you are either, Michael, but I'd love to know. I'd love to get a little more information. I'd help him a ton. That would be a brutal test. It's not like Trice has not seen the field before. But if the Steelers do have a second man-to-man coverage corner, it's Trice. I mean, that I 100% believe. I know they have one, and they don't grow on trees. I definitely think that the offseason will be heavily prioritized to get another. But if there's one sleeping right under your nose, it's Trice. I'm not going to answer your question. Yes, I would start him. No, I would not against the Bengals. But I like where your head's at, and I totally get it. And maybe, I mean, is Jackson on a short leash? Could you just frame it of we want to give him back another week? I don't think he's a particularly good player or a man corner. I would not bring him back. I know that that's not a super popular opinion, but I see what you're saying. I also wonder if deep down they already know this answer and just see Trice as a third guy, a fourth guy, and they don't think he's capable, let alone against Higgins or Chase. I mean, but I'm glad you brought it up, and it's one that I picked this question for that reason, just to plant the seed. All you guys listening can at least see the logic, I think, of why you might think this way with Trice. And I don't know that he's some sleeping giant, that's going to be a great player for years to come. But I would like to know more. And how bad would it really hurt you, by putting him in this game? It's not like Jackson's going to shut down Jamar Chase. So there you have it. All right, guys, good stuff. I will be back tomorrow. Bye.